Good morning from the kitchen, folks. Today I'm going to have a go at making a pomegranate flavoured cider. So here are my key ingredients. Let's go left to right. I'm beginning with apple juice, which is apple juice from concentrate in the turbo cider method. I'm flavouring with some Hazababa Turkish pomegranate tea, purchased online. It's powdered tea. There's 260 grams of it in this packet. I'm going to use half of it in the cider. If that doesn't flavour it enough, I will also add some at bottling to back flavour. I want to put a little bit of pectolase in case this makes it go cloudy. That might help it to clear. I want to add some yeast nutrient for the yeast to feed on. My yeast of choice today is Lalvin ICVD 47. I've got a little bit of spring water because I'm going to begin by making some tea. So I've got 2 tea bags. I'm going to pop them into the little saucepan. I'm going to add onto the tea bags a small amount of spring water. There's probably about 500 ml gone in there. And it's a case of gas on and heat on. And what I'm wanting to do is to make some tea with this. The tea provides tannins. It gives the cider more of a rounded taste, a bit more mouthfeel, and that cider bite you sometimes notice. This will help all of that. So that is now something which is ongoing. So whilst that is ongoing, let's have a look at my fermentation vessel of choice today, which is a plastic 5 litre water bottle. So whilst I'm waiting for the tea to boil, I'm going to add my apple juice into the fermenting vessel. I'm just going to tip that in via a funnel. And I do have people commenting, why don't you stab the bottom of the carton so it comes out faster? I'm not in any hurry. This is a really nice and straightforward recipe. So if you don't know about turbo ciders, it's basically using apple juice from concentrate rather than apples. It's a lot quicker, it's a lot easier, and in all honesty the results are just as good, if not better. There's a great Facebook group, Turbo Ciders for All, where you'll find lots of good people and good recipes, so I recommend it to you if you want to learn about turbo ciders. And whilst I'm talking about Facebook, have you followed my Facebook page for Moss Home and Garden? If you haven't, go and give it a follow. Have you also subscribed to my YouTube channel, www.mosshomeandgarden.co.uk, takes you straight to the channel. Give us a subscribe, press the red follow button, massively appreciated. Thank you. And now I'm on litre number 3, and this is the last one that I'm going to put in for now. Okay, so I've got 3 litres of apple juice in there. I'm not going to add any more at this point until I've got my tea poured in. So my tea is now boiling. Steamy. What I'm going to do is mash the tea bags to get all that tannin flavour out of them. Something that proper tea drinkers say, oh, you should never mash a tea bag. Cider makers say, mash a tea bag. Okay, so I've just got the tea bags out now on this potato masher, and I'm just going to squeeze the juice out and into the pan. These are now done. So here's the Turkish pomegranate tea. Let me tell you, it smells wonderful. I want to weigh out 130 grams. Oh, I think that will do. Now I want this to dissolve, so I'm going to add it into the tea mixture while it's still hot. That's a lovely colour. So I'm just going to give this a little stir around and make sure that it has dissolved before adding it into the apple juice. And that looks fine to me. And I'm going to add my tea and pomegranate flavour now into the apple juice. Now it's very hot, and this is a plastic vessel, but the apple juice will protect it. And just look how the colour has changed. That's so nice. So I'm going to add a good heaped teaspoonful of pectolase into this. And I'm going to add a good heaped teaspoonful of yeast nutrient, but I'm not adding the yeast just yet. Now I'm going to take my final litre of apple juice and top up the fermenting vessel. So this will also wash the funnel out. And I'm not worried about overfilling it, because if it does go a bit crazy, I'll use a blow-off pipe. So this is what I've currently got now. Okay, I need to take the original gravity of this so I can work out the alcohol by volume at the end. So I'm going to sacrifice 100 ml into my hydrometer tube. I won't put that back into the brew, but I will have a little taste of it. So that's just over 100 ml in my tube. It's too warm to take the original gravity at the minute. I need to take that at 20 degrees, and this feels definitely warmer than that. So I'm going to pop this in my fridge for 20 minutes and come back to it. So while I'm waiting for what's in the hydrometer tube to cool, I'm now going to add my yeast into the cider must. So this is Lalvin ICV D47. I'm hoping for a medium dry flavour, not too dry a flavour. I'm attempting to add the equivalent of a teaspoonful. A rounded teaspoonful, that will do. There we go. So I'm just going to agitate this now by just giving it a little swirl around. I'm trying to remove anything that's stuck around the edges of the fermenting vessel, and I want the yeast to mix in nicely. And I think I've done that. So I'm now going to add the airlock, which has just been sanitised. Just shaking off any excess water. Now I'm adding that to keep contaminants out. I will need to remove the airlock when I move this into its final place for fermenting, because it's a plastic water bottle. When you pick it up, it goes and it would suck the airlock water in, and I don't want that to happen. But I don't want any airborne contaminants getting in the meantime, so I am going to put this in place. It's a very cheap and effective way to make a fermenting vessel, especially when I buy spring water in the first place for fermenting with. And I do that because the tap water where I live is very chlorine-y. So I've got the bung in place. It's now a case of playing the waiting game. I'm just waiting for what's in the fridge to cool down so I can take the original gravity. Then I can get this labelled up. I'll be back in a bit. Okay, my liquid has cooled to 20 degrees. It's time to take the original gravity. So I've got my hydrometer here, and in it goes. So I'm starting off on a reasonable original gravity, probably something in the 6 to 7% range maybe. I am looking at an original gravity of 1.057, 1057. So I'll just have a little nifter of this, see what it's like. That's absolutely beautiful. Wow. Actually tastes like raspberry a little bit. Yeah, that goes really well. I hope this is going to be a good cider. So in terms of fermentation, this is now just beginning to bubble. So I can see that there's positive pressure inside the fermentation vessel. It's been in there about 2 hours altogether, and things are just starting to happen. You can see for yourself that there is the beginnings of a very minor krausen on top just there. That really isn't going to be much of a krausen. Anyway, I'm going to remove the airlock, move this, put the airlock back in, and I'll come back to you with an update in a couple of days' time just to see where fermentation's going. So I'll see you then. So just a 3 days later fermentation update, and it is now happening. It's not fast and furious as yet, but it's definitely happening. No krausen whatsoever, but I kind of expected that anyway. But yes, fermentation is happening. It's been a little bit slow to start, but it's now going. Good afternoon from the kitchen, folks. It's my pomegranate cider bottling day. Let's have a look at it. Here it is. It's beautifully clear. It's been in the fermenter for 1 month exactly. It's fermented for about 3 weeks, and now it's stopped and time to bottle. So I've got my bottles in the sink, ready to add some priming sugar. Each one of these bottles is going to get a good heaped teaspoonful of standard household caster sugar. And what the sugar will do is it will become food for the yeast which is left in this in suspension. The yeast will eat that, it will cause a fractional fermentation, a byproduct will be CO2, that builds up pressure, and that's why it gets a sparkle. Incidentally, it's currently in sunshine. It's only while I'm doing the bottling that it's in sunshine. It hasn't been during fermentation. So it's bung out, siphoning tube in. I've got the tube held in place with this very handy clip. The bottom of the tube is down into the minute amount of sediment, but the first bit that comes out is going to go into the hydrometer jar. Let's do it. Beautiful colour. And into the bottles. So I'm hoping to get 6 750ml bottles out of this. Whether I will or not, I don't know, we'll see. If I need to use this that's in the hydrometer tube to top a bottle up, I will do. Otherwise, it'll probably just be sampled and then thrown away. So looking at this, I don't think I am going to get 6 bottles. I think I might get 5 bottles and possibly a half, but I'll keep going anyway. And there we go, bubbles in the siphoning tube. Say that's over. So I've ended up with 5 750ml bottles and what looks pretty much like a half bottle. I'll have to find another bottle for that one. So I'm going to work out the final gravity for this brew. I'll just drop the hydrometer in, and that's sank very nicely. And I'm looking at a final gravity of 1.002, 1002. So it's time to work out the alcohol by volume for this brew. So I take the original gravity of 1.057, I deduct from that the final gravity of 1.002, that equals 0.055. I multiply this by 131.25, and this gives me a final alcohol by volume of 7.2%. I'm happy with that. Okay, so here's what I've ended up with. It's time to add the bungs, and as I said, I've got them softening in very hot water. It just makes them more malleable. So for each of the bungs, it's just a case of shaking the excess water off and then pushing them in. Sometimes I wear a glove because it does hurt, especially if you do it repetitively. I'll stick it out today. I'll come back to you in a second. And that's what I mean by it does hurt now and again when you do this. Ouch. Right, I've got my bungs in place. I now need to add cages. Cages are an essential safety feature because when the secondary fermentation takes place in the bottle, once the CO2 begins to eat that priming sugar, it has a little fermentation which creates CO2. The CO2 builds up. Without the cage, pop. Your bung becomes a missile. So I'm just adding the cages now. All of these cages are recycled from other bottles. They usually last about 3 or 4 times before they break. Okay, that's one done. As you can see, that cage is now on nice and securely. I've got the rest to do. I shall be back to you when they're done. So I've got my bottles bunged and caged, and I now need to rinse them off because they're all sticky with residue and I want to label them. Okay, I'm just going to dry these off now, then I'll sort the labels out, and then this stage will be done. So I've got my labels made up in a very simple Microsoft Word template. I'm going to print these out. So I've got my labels here, and I'm just going to pop them on the bottles. Make them look nice. It's nice to do nice things, and it's nice to make them look nice. They're not the most exciting of labels. Who cares? Anyway, I'll come back to you shortly. Welcome to my conditioning room, folks. This is where my pomegranate cider is going to condition for the next month. Here it is down here on these shelves. So the conditioning process is the process whereby the yeast in suspension eats the priming sugar that I put in, which will give it a sparkle. These shelves are temperature controlled. So here is a thermometer. It's connected down there to a timer plug. When the temperature drops to 19.5, it turns on the heater behind the shelves. When it gets to 20.5, it turns it off. They'll condition here for 1 month. So I'm going to come back to you in a month's time for opening and tasting. Catch you then, folks. Good evening from the kitchen, folks. It's my pomegranate cider grand opening night. And yes, I am slightly excited about this one. I'm always excited about this one. Well, I don't know if you can tell, but it's a lovely and very clear brew. It looks really nice in the bottle. And the bung has raised by about 2 millimetre on that side, which to me suggests that carbonation has happened. Fingers crossed. I want it to have a nice pour, lovely flavour, smell, all that stuff. What am I going to get? Let's find out. Obviously the flavour's the most important thing. But when I open it, it'd be nice if I get a little pop. Cage off. Oh, it's a little pop. But we've got bubbles. We've got bubbles. That's a good sign. Right. Let's pour. So I've got the good and Carolus glass. Oh, yeah. There's no need for disappointment. Looks like a cider. Smells like a cider. But let's see if it tastes like a pomegranate cider. I'm going to be quite honest with you. I can't even think what a pomegranate tastes like. It's been so long since I've eaten one. Anyway. The tannin comes through. It's very tannin. It's pomegranate tea, don't forget. Oh, you get that. This isn't just dry. This is dry. It's cutting down the centre of my tongue. Yeah, it's like a dry scrape straight down the centre. It's a good flavour, don't get me wrong. The dry scrape might sound like an awful thing, but it's not. I'm just trying to put into words what I'm getting in my mouth as I'm drinking this. The flavour is definitely dry cider, and I mean dry cider. But there's something more to it, something meatier. And I think it must be the tannin from the pomegranate tea. It's really good. It's not something that I would ever have guessed was pomegranate. You know, if you have this, you go, it smells like a dry cider. It tastes like a dry cider. It's a really dry cider. But it's got a great flavour. Let's have a look at the ABV. 7.2%. If I'm quite honest, it tastes more like 9%. It's good. I'm happy enough with it. I will use the rest of my pomegranate tea powder in another brew, but I won't do a cider. I'll try and think of something a bit more imaginative to do with it. Anyway, I'm not disappointed. It's a good flavour. It's a good cider. So cheers, folks. And I'll catch you on the next brew. The film that you've just watched is a Moss Home and Garden production. You can find more by going to www.mosshomeandgarden.co.uk. I'd just like to say thank you very much for supporting my YouTube channel and for watching my films. It really is very much appreciated. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to my YouTube channel in order to receive future updates about the home and garden films which I upload. You can find my YouTube channel by going to www.mosshomeandgarden.co.uk. please click on the red subscribe button. When you've done that, a little bell will appear. If you press that also, then you'll get future updates about the films which I upload. If you like my films, if you like my style of filming, then you might also like my travel channel, which you will find by going to youtube.com/Stuart Moss or type in www.mosstravel.tv. Again, if you could subscribe to that channel, it would be hugely appreciated. If you'd like to get Moss Home and Garden updates on Facebook, then please open Facebook and do a search for Moss Home and Garden, and you will find the page. If you like the page, then you will get future updates on there. And if you'd like to connect on Instagram for home, garden and travel photography, as well as some stories, then my username is StuMoss, STUMOSS. If you'd like to connect on Twitter, then my username is @StuartMoss. And if you'd like to contact me about film usage or any other issue, please just email me on stewmosshomegarden@gmail.com. Once again, thank you very much for supporting my channel, for watching my films. I do appreciate it. I'd just like you all to have a great day.